Hi Internet! Today I'm going to show you my updated RED Komodo rig for 2024. The whole rig revolves around this part, which is the Ignite Digi Keystone. The moment you mount the camera inside the Keystone, you basically have a camera sized as an Alexa Mini, at least from the height. It makes it possible to mount the camera in different positions. You have 4 sides on the Keystone and you can basically mount all plates, like the top plate and the bottom plate, to any side of the Keystone. Another advantage, which I experienced very recently, when we tilt up to reveal our top shot camera, which doesn't have a Keystone on, it's sometimes very hard to mount the camera if you're not able to position the pole the way you actually prefer it. With the Keystone you have the possibility, if you have the camera inside the Keystone, you can basically switch the position of the top plate to the bottom and put the camera plate, for example like a Manfrotto or an O'Connor plate, to the top. And then mount the camera accordingly, and you can position the boom from almost any angle and have the camera in the right orientation for your shot. If you have to shoot 9x16, you can just reposition the camera like this, just mount the top plate and the bottom plate from the side to the then new top and bottom, and also the transmitter, and everything is perfect. And so you shoot a vertical video like you would normally shoot. I tried a variety of components for the camera. The most annoying part was actually the battery solution, and I ended up with the Komodo plate made by Bebop. For getting rid of the play in my kipper tie mount, or more or less in the RF mount of the Komodo, I have this handy bracket which mounts to the bottom of the camera. Also, if you want to shoot something without Keystone, you can mount a camera plate to the bottom. At the moment, for handheld and studio work, I usually use the Mutiny plate, just because it's making me able to have an entire Limo connected and powered camera, so I get rid of all the D-tap, or as you might say, P-tap connections. Since the Komodo-X got this locking RF, I mostly don't use another lens support like for Komodo. I probably should, but yeah, the future would tell. My first plate I ever acquired was the A plate, the Type A, or however you want to call it. The A plate has this 105mm dual rod mount fitted. I regularly use the B plate. For me it makes no difference actually. Both are compatible with the Keystone. This is also compatible with a Venice, and this one is just compatible with DSMC2 and ARRI. And as I said before, it's possible to mount this plate and also the bottom plate in any position of the Keystone. Now we need to put on the other shoe, which would be the gimbal mate. And the nice thing about that plate is you have compatibility for Ronin 2 and Mobi Pro. The most convenient solution for me was the DJI Universal Tripod Adapter. Here you see it mounted to this Ignite Digi spacer, which makes it compatible to the ARRI BP8 camera plate. This makes big studio rigs with 19mm rods and big zooms possible. We need to get all our accessories powered, and the solution for that is a 2-pin Limo breakout. So you just mount this part down here. In my case, I'm using a Vexus Storm 1000S. It's already mounted to a carbon fiber plate, which is super lightweight and fits perfectly to the Keystone. Another rising competitor in the transmission world would be the DJI transmission. And we also have the bracket for this here. The transmitter neatly mounts with that carbon plate to the Keystone as well. And Ignite also provides a power cable for the 2-pin Limo breakout, which conveniently goes right down here But for now, I'm going to unmount this one and finish my rig with my transmitter. In my case, I'm using the Ignite Digi top handle, which sports a Movi Pro top dovetail. It just slides onto the top plate. On the front, I have the small rig friction arm with a lens quick adapter. The Cine 7 is mostly used in handheld and studio configurations, and the Cine 5, after using the Cine 7 on a gimbal for quite some time, I figured a 5-inch is much more convenient when you mount it to the gimbal ring, since repositioning and also balancing after repositioning on my RED rig is a little bit nicer. So first thing will be providing power from the battery plate to the Limo breakout, which then feeds all the accessories. A short information about this Limo breakout is there are 4 ports, and 1 acts as an input and 3 as an output, and you can decide which one will be the input. Next thing will be the power for the video transmitter. The next cable is my power for my monitor, which is a fairly long 2-pin to 2-pin Limo cable, and I route it through the Keystone. I'm going to attach the top handle again. The motor, which we can put here for a brief moment. And to make it a little bit more logical, I'm gonna put my lens on. The next step will be this 7-pin to 3-pin Fisher cable. Just a side note, there's also a little nice cable made by Ignite to daisy chain the nucleus motors. And there's also another solution which is very nice, and this is this splitter cable, which provides a Komodo-X, a 2-pin Limo and a 3-pin Fisher socket. This works with the Nucleus M motors and also I think with REC Force motors. Okay, so I went with 12G BNC cables made by Ignite as well. And so I have this very short one, and the other cable is another 12G, in that case a angled to straight version, which I plug into my Vexus transmitter and route something like this and put into my monitor. Except for a battery, this is my setup. There are a couple of possibilities. In that case, I'm going to mount the XT bracket to the camera as well. My preferred position has been behind the transmitter, but I don't really like it anymore, so I put it on top of the camera, even though it covers the display a little bit. And since I put in this 3-pin Fisher, I just press record on the nucleus and you hear a little beep, and it would actually start recording, but it can't because there's no media in. In the case you're using the XT breakout, I'm going to unplug the 3-pin Fisher here and put it right into the XT breakout, and we imagine this is not here. Then I just have to take this XT jumper cable. There are different lengths actually. This would be great for the Komodo. This is good for Komodo-X or Raptor because the whole I/O layout is a little bit different. I put it into the XT port of the Komodo, and there are 2 possible connections. You can take either of them. The only thing that is missing is power for the motor. So for this demonstration, I'm going to put in the Ignite cable into the motor and put it into one of the Limo outputs of the distribution plate. And hopefully you hear a sound when I press this rec button on the nucleus. Here we are. Another solution for record triggering the camera would be this earlier mentioned Y cable, and also the regular Nucleus 7-pin to XT cable, which you can buy basically everywhere. The first thing would be to remove the top handle and the battery plate. There is a power solution mounted to the gimbal, the power expansion pack, and with that modification I have a very nicely positioned 3-pin Limo where I can put my power cable for the camera. At first we take off the top handle and the monitor. I usually put the Limo cable for the monitor into the rod and lock it again. I'm going to disconnect the 3-pin fisher for the moment, and also the power for the breakout. I'm going to put on the power cable for the nucleus before I put the camera into the gimbal. Like this. This is already everything we need to put on the gimbal. So I take my power cable, put it into the LEMO socket, and then there is the D-tap on the back, 12 to 14 volts. And then we can throw in the camera. Lock it down for now. Can also already put in the power for accessories. Take the camera power and put this in as well. If I want to use the camera like this, for example as a remote head, I usually use the movie controller, and the translator enables me to change DSMC3 settings from a distance, which is very handy. And I just need to get rid of this one and put on the translator and tighten it down. And now I'm able to balance the camera. Now the gimbal is balanced. I need to rebalance in a bit, but I need to put some cables in before that. A longer XT cable, because I am choosing the wired way to connect the translator to the camera for this moment. But there's also the possibility to connect the translator to the camera wirelessly. So you're using both EXT ports of the breakout. The only two cables left are the CAN and the CAM cable. The one is for powering the unit, and the other is making it able to speak to the movie controller. So now everything is attached, as you see here. I need a quick rebalance. Turn on the gimbal. Here we are. And turning on the movie controller. So what you can do with a movie controller when you hooked up the Ignite translator to your camera, you can basically set everything from red code parameters to the ISO or the shutter angle. You can set the frame rate. If you have, for example, the RED END mounted on the camera, you could also map the END to the movie controller and increase or decrease your neutral density filter. So that's it for my current setup. If you have any more questions, feel free to comment down below or hit me up on Instagram. See ya!